Welcome to Stoneleigh, a natural garden. Stoneleigh is the newest public garden in the Philadelphia region, and it's right here on the main line. I'm Pat Nogar, host of Living Well with Pat Nogar on Radnor Studio 21, and today we're going to take you on a tour of this fabulous place called Stoneleigh. So come with me. Our first stop on this magical journey today will be the main house. It's really the heartbeat of this property that was established back in the late 1800s, and it really stands for all that Stoneleigh is. You'll see. I'm here with Ethan Kauffman, the director at Stoneleigh, and we really are at the heart of Stoneleigh right now, right, Ethan?
That's correct. This is what we call the main house, and this served as a family residence for generations.
You know, it's hard to imagine now that it has become a public garden that it really began its life as a private residence.
Yes.
What was the vision at that time? I can't imagine that people even envisioned that it would eventually become public. Is that right?
Yes, it's pretty incredible. So Stoneleigh has a long history that really dates all the way back to the 1700s and even prior to that. But for our relevance, it really started to amp up in the 1870s. With the Pennsylvania Railroad that came through this area, or had been here, but became very active.
That brought a lot of prosperity to the area, didn't it?
It did, and it drew a lot of Philadelphia's most affluent families to the main line and the proximity of the railroad. And that's where Stoneleigh, as the property that we know today, really began.
Because they really poured their money into building these beautiful, what we would call mansions today, and into these mansions for their families, right?
Absolutely. And these are called country place estates. And that period was, I think...
Or country cottages, as sometimes they were called, which really blows my mind.
Yeah, I know. I believe the period is the 1870s to the, I think, 1930s. I'm not a historian, but I think that's
You're close,
fairly
I think.
accurate.
Right.
Yeah.
I always refer to these beautiful buildings as mansions. And you made a point to say to me, actually, we don't call it a mansion. We call it
We call it the main house.
And why is that?
Well, the reason for that is... Stoneleigh, in its new journey, is a public garden. And public gardens are meant to be accessible for everyone. And we are in a really unique place to do that here because not only is this located very close to public transportation as well as Lancaster Avenue, but it's also free to everyone who comes here. And that is really important for us to be able to offer this generous gift from the Haas family for everyone to enjoy. And so words like mansion.
Terminology matters, doesn't it?
It matters, and that might not be as welcoming and comforting for everybody.
But main house really does have a whole different feel.
Sure, because it is centrally located on the property. It tells what it is, without sounding too...
ostentatious.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
So the first main residence at Stoneleigh was constructed in 1878 by Edmund Smith. And Edmund Smith was something of a gentleman, or was a gentleman farmer. And so this place, well, he wasn't a gentleman farmer. He was a vice president with Pennsylvania Railroad.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
But he operated his estate as a gentleman's farm. So there was agriculture here.
So he was the perfect person to design it because it really reflects the venue, the environment that it sits in.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And as the first family here, they in a primarily rural region at the time, they used this place as many other families used their estates. So there were chickens as well, vegetable gardens. And then the next family that came in was in 1899, and that was Samuel Bodine. Ah,
okay. I remember that name.
Sure, and Samuel Bodine really ushered in a period of a different, I would say, more refinement to the property.
And that's when the landscape architects really began to be involved. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And begin to give it the shape that we know of today, right? So who was the first landscape architect?
Well, the records are
Miller or something like that? Or?
Yes, Charles Miller was the first. Our records are pretty unclear about exactly what he did. And that was pre-1900. However, in 1900, Samuel Bodine hired Pentecost and Vitale, who were very well-known and accomplished landscape architects.
It's interesting because today we never hear of those names.
Right.
They become sort of faded into the background. Why did that happen?
Well,
Did they not have a good press agent?
Well, they didn't have social media, that's for
Right,
sure.
exactly.
In regards to them, I'm not certain why, but they are well known among those people.
Architects, and
Yes,
landscape architects,
yes.
and people who care about these things,
Sure.
right? Sure.
And they left their mark at Stoneleigh in only a small period of 6 years, until 1906. And what they did was they created in the Beaux-Arts style, which is formal.
Very formal.
And there were a lot of
That's when you
alleys.
get your alleys and boxwoods that are cut and trimmed. And,
Absolutely. And they created some of the most striking hardscape features here that we'll see later on. But they lasted, as I said, till 1906. And Samuel Bodine, after only 6 years, said, "You know what? I want to go a different
direction.
Go
I think
figure.
I'm ready for something else, right?
Yeah. So
And that's when the Olmsted brothers came.
yes, the Olmsted brothers came in around 1908, and they are, of course, the sons of the famed Frederick Law Olmsted.
Of Central Park fame, right?
Yes, the father, widely considered the father of landscape, American landscape
as we know it
architecture.
today, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they came in and they began to put their stamp. And what did they do different?
They brought a completely different feel to the property. So they designed in a naturalistic way. So they took a lot of these straight lines and made them curves.
They softened it.
They softened
Do you think that made it much more of a welcoming environment?
it. I
As
think,
opposed to, sort of a staid, I'm showing off my wealth environment?
yeah, I think it was a very comfortable environment. And what's interesting is with that layer that they brought, it really created this unique combination of Beaux-Arts style with the naturalistic style that exists today. So that's what we have. It's not one or the other, but really a combination of both.
Both of them. So when the Haas's family bought the property, what did they do different? Did they do anything different, or did they continue, that style that was imprinted by the Olmsted brothers?
The Haas family, of course, are amazing, and their tenure here was amazing.
And they're the reason we're sitting here today, right?
absolutely, yes, they're incredible. And so they started in about 1935 and had an 80-year relationship with Stoneleigh. And they really were wonderful, wonderful stewards of this property. They are the reason why we see what we see today, and everything is so intact and beautiful and well preserved. And what they really did was they took care of everything, and they loved their trees. And you can see that as we walk around, just how beautiful they are, how well maintained they are.
I'm anxious to see that. They really understood that they were stewards of this property, didn't they?
Yes, and they were. And first and foremost, it was a family home, a loving family home. And I think that's also a really important piece of Stoneleigh's history.
And I'm anxious to see those trees. So why don't we go take a look at them?
I'd love to.
So this property really has a very special focus in terms of the plantings that are here and the trees, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it has a very special focus, doesn't it?
It does. Stoneleigh is owned and operated by Natural Lands, which is the region's oldest and largest land conservation organization. It was founded all the way back in 1953.
Really? And most of us never heard of it until Stoneleigh came into existence. So.
Well, yeah, it's actually very well known, I think, among a large percentage of the population, especially people that enjoy the outdoors. And we own and operate 44 nature preserves primarily in eastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey.
That's amazing. 44.
Yes.
So how many people does it take to do that?
Well, the organization employs about 85 or so full-time staff.
That's
And-
an average of 2 people per property. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and even more incredible than that, we have a really tremendous stewardship team. And these are the men and women that are out in the preserves. They manage them, they do prescribed burns, they plant trees, they conduct programs, and we have 2.5 million people that live within 5 miles of one of our preserves.
That's amazing. So the focus of Natural Lands really is preservation of green space, isn't it?
Yeah, we save land, we care for nature, and we connect people to the outdoors.
So as we talk about connecting people to the outdoors, native species really comes into play. So particularly here you focus on that. Why is it? Why are native species so important? I mean, and you know, I'm a gardener, so I understand that, and my property of my own is mostly native species. But why are they so important?
I think in this time of overdevelopment, urban sprawl, thinking more critically about our environment is a no-brainer. We all need to be doing this, and Stoneleigh serves as an amazing example of sustainability in the landscape. And so here at Stoneleigh, we certainly have a legacy of non-native species, which they're very beautiful, and we certainly care for those. And and they're not invasive
all
species.
All plants are beautiful.
They
aren't
are, and these are a part of the landscape, and they're non-invasive, so they're fine for us. But we emphasize native plants, and every new plant that we put in the ground is a native species.
Native. And natives do well because?
Natives do well. Well, you know, people often think natives do well because they're native or just because they're from this region. That's only partially correct. Yes, many of them are adapted to the temperatures here, to the soil, but really there's such a diversity in this region in the state. A plant from the mountaintops has obviously different requirements than a plant from a wetland.
Right.
And so I think native plants really, to me, I think more about how they fit into the whole, into biodiversity.
To the whole ecosystem. That we're
exactly.
Right.
And how they can help really build a healthier planet. And if everybody would think about planting natives in their yard, in their own yard, we could really increase the number of insects, the number of birds, pollinators, and the other things that are so critical to
and when you say increase the number of insects, most people would say, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to sit outside and get... But really, insects are great, aren't they?
They're the foundation for most of the wildlife, and it's what they feed on, and really it's part of the food chain that's imperative.
And we need them. I release ladybugs into my plants often.
Yeah. People always say good bugs or bad bugs. Well, to me, there's no such thing.
It depends on how you use them, right? And where they are.
They all play a very important role in our ecosystem.
So what Natural Lands does, that mission really is reflected here at Stoneleigh.
Absolutely. And this property is different from the rest of our properties because it is a public garden. And there's a certain refinement here that's pretty unique. And it's also unique in that we're able to really have an audience in a different part of the region and a more densely populated audience. So we're really excited about that.
So we want people to come here. You really want people to come, look and see how natives are used here on the property at Stoneleigh, and come up with ideas on how to use them at their own home.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really compelling stories here, is that since we are free, anybody can come, and they see that we're a new garden, and they see these beds as we develop them and as they change. And I think that's scalable to someone's own yard, their own business or community. They think, you know what, I see how this is done. I think I can do that. They're not coming here to this
and being overwhelmed or intimidated by something. Because when I think back on the Olmsted brothers and the philosophy that they brought to these plantings, they really are not those stiff, formal planting beds that I'm looking at here. We're looking at beautiful, soft, curving beds that are very approachable and that anybody could really emulate at home.
Absolutely, and Stoneleigh itself is a very romantic place.
That's a great word. I like that. It is a very romantic place.
And our style will be, one with plants exploding out of bounds. Vines crawling over
escaping
everything.
Their beds, right?
Escaping. But we also want to be careful to show people how to use native plants in more formal ways, in ways that people can identify with for all properties. So the main house is a really great place for us to do that. We can
more
share.
Formal.
We want to show boxwood replacements. We want to show native plants that can be used instead of some of these more exotic species that can be damaging to our environment. Things like barberry, which is very invasive and burning.
I made the mistake of planting one of those once. They're very difficult to manage.
They are, and really, if you're not familiar with that species, if you go out to some of what you think are wilder places in the state and you see a ground cover of barberry, it really is impactful, and you can really understand how it can be damaging.
How damaged can it be? So this is really also educational, isn't it?
Yes, public gardens at their core are about education, and Stoneleigh is no different. And so we're very excited to bring in the public and develop some really environmentally based programs around this beautiful place.
Talk to me about the trees, because I walked around the other day and I saw some magnificent trees. Some of them are as old as what?
100 or even 150 years old. We think it's hard to tell, but Stoneleigh is really has an amazing tree layer.
That's amazing. The trees are here, older than, we're talking generations, right?
Yeah. It's one of our most intriguing assets, and they are incredible. And in an area like Pennsylvania, which has some of the biggest trees in the country, Stoneleigh stands out, even in this area. And we have 10 varieties that are in the top 10 largest of their respective.
Is that correct?
In the entire state.
In the entire state.
Yes.
So we really have a treasure trove of trees here. So people can come, kids in my neighborhood come and use our trees for our property for their school projects because they can collect leaves, because we label all of our trees. That's really what we're talking about here, isn't it? The kids coming, college students coming, landscape students coming, horticultural students coming.
And children of all ages. This is a fun place. And so we, as a public garden, we also have our plants and trees labeled here. And it's important for us to say, hey, this is a great native plant. Here's what it is. And people can really take that information home and use it.
I love that. That is absolutely great. Thank you so much. Maintaining a property like this can't be easy. I mean, it looks like it could be easy because I'm looking at some of the things you've done, like letting the trees go their own way. For instance, you just blew my mind when you showed me that arborvitae that literally grew into a piece of sculpture when you let it go its own way. So it looks like you guys are sitting there going, just let nature do what nature does, but that's not true, is it? It takes an incredible amount of oversight and management.
That's correct, and thank you for the compliment, because we feel like we're doing our job if our guests come in and think that it looks effortless. But really, in reality, gardens are they're a lot of work, but they're fun work. And so we have some really enormous trees, as we talked about, and those trees require a lot of care, pruning out dead, taking out branches. When we have really tough winters like we did this winter, we have to pay particularly close attention to them.
I'll bet, and trees can become diseased pretty quickly. I mean, they've been diseased for a long time, but then they'll show really quickly.
Sure.
All of a sudden you look and go, where did that come from?
Yes. Right? And we have, we're fortunate enough to have over 100 hemlocks on the property, some of them very, very big, and they require care every year for the woolly adelgid. So that's another layer of maintenance. And really one of the fun problems that we have, it is a new public garden, and there's so much space for us to plant right now, and it's
true.
Any horticulturist, we're in such a great situation that we have all these neat places to think about.
So you look out across the horizon and it looks unlimited, right?
It does, and it's really exciting to see that.
Which makes me think, with all these, coming behind all of these great architects, the landscape architects, are you able to put some of your own stamp on this, or are you following the plans that were laid out by the greats, the Olmsteds and the Vitalis? Are you following that, or are you putting your stamp on it?
That's a great question. We are certainly keeping the incredible infrastructure and bones and pathways of what they've done, the hardscapes, the historical elements. But we are reinterpreting the plant layer. All the existing trees, of course, are here and staying, but we're coming back in with herbaceous plants and native plants to really make this an environmentally friendly garden. So we're not going to look at their old plans and recreate it like you would, a model airplane or something.
Right.
Gardens are dynamic.
Yes, they are, aren't they?
They're not meant to be static like a picture. So that's what's really exciting for us as well, that this garden will continually evolve, continually offer our guests a new experience in the seasons, ending the new beds that we create.
Because as you change one thing, you create a new microclimate somewhere that wasn't there before, right?
That's absolutely
And
correct.
then you have to do something different. So it really has to be challenging, but as you said, it's a good challenge.
It is.
Because you get to create a lot of really fun things. I noticed this morning you have a lot of volunteers out there working.
I love volunteers, and we love volunteers, and we have a really wonderful team that comes every week. We have volunteers in the garden, and
they're doing grunt work.
Oh, they do it all. They're terrific. They're enthusiastic. They work for free.
The best part, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, the best part is that they love what they do.
And it's a connection to the community.
That's true.
And we're a small staff. There are only 6 of us right now, and so we really couldn't do what we do in this garden without their help.
So volunteer help really is critical, isn't it? To help implement that vision that you constantly, that evolving vision
It is.
that you have. So speaking of community, how do you connect to the community? Are there programs? I know you don't have a lot right now, but I know you have some that I saw on your flyer. Sort of an under the stars experience.
Right. So this is our first year of operation, and we have a smaller offering of programs than we will in subsequent years. But we have things like bird walks, big tree walks. We have small native plants for small spaces. We have a really fantastic fundraiser coming up for natural lands. It's called Stardust, and it's June 8th.
Oh, nice. And where will that take place? Here?
And it will actually take place very close to where we're sitting in the circle garden behind us.
Very nice.
And this is a magical evening.
Really?
It really is. Yes.
Oh, I may have to come to that one.
Oh, we would love it.
That would be fabulous. So you do events that connect to the community, and then I also notice there are people walking around. So Stoneleigh, again, and I really want to emphasize this, is free, right? You just walk in during the hours that it's open.
Yeah, we're really proud to offer Stoneleigh as a free public garden. And we're open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day except for Monday. And those off times gives us, that's when we mow the grass.
Right.
That's when we work
when you do your maintenance work, right?
Sure. But during our hours of operation, it's really neat that people can come and access this place. And we also, Natural Lands has a membership program.
Oh, okay.
Which I would encourage everybody to
So a person can
about.
become a member, and then you support it by being a member, but
Yes.
you also get, I guess, special information,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, and Stoneleigh offers some really unique examples of that. So this summer we'll be offering 5 summer sessional nights, is what we call them.
That's what I remember reading about.
It's an after-hours experience where our members are invited to come in free. And from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m., they can bring their food, their picnic basket, their favorite beverage of choice, and just explore on their own.
What a lovely idea. So that's another way that people can connect to the gardens. You don't have to be a gardener, per se, to come and enjoy the beauty that is Stoneleigh.
Public gardens are for everybody. And beauty, relaxation, and knowledge should be available to everyone. Everyone.
And you created that. Now, I did notice some people walked up to the main house and wanted to go in, but it isn't really open on that casual a basis. How do you access the main house? Because people are going to want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, it is a very intriguing part of the property, and it's really at the heart of the property. And so we offer pre-arranged tours. You can, if you're interested in that, you can go to our website, stoneleghgarden.org, and sign up. We ask that it be 10 people or more. And then we also offer these special events throughout the year that are also make the main house accessible.
So on lots of levels, people can become connected to Stoneleigh, from something as casual as walking around the grounds to something as formal as being an actual volunteer, and have times when you should show up, right?
Sure, and memberships, and then our other classes and other ways to interact with the garden. And gardens are so much more than just beauty. This is the backdrop for all the engagement that we have.
And I like something you said earlier. You said gardens are dynamic. They change constantly. So that's an exciting thing for people to experience. They'll come on one day, and they'll come maybe a few months later, and it'll be a different garden, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's really incredible. There's so many things that factor in that. The other night, I was working late, and I came out, and the sky was this indescribable bright combination of brightness and darkness all at once, and I looked up and there was a double rainbow over the meadow vista.
Oh, goodness. I think I know that rainbow you're talking about. I spotted it from the Schuylkill.
Yeah.
So, I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you never know. Each visit is different, depending on the weather, on what's in flower. Sometimes your own personal mood is a reflection of what you see.
Of what you see. And such is the nature of Stoneleigh, and why it is such an amazing gift from the houses to the community. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. You're a great ambassador for Stoneleigh.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's been my pleasure.
We hope you have enjoyed your special trip into Stoneleigh, a natural garden. As you can see, this is an amazing gift from the Haas family to this community, and we hope you will treasure it as such and come and visit it. It is truly a special gift to our community. Join us again on the next episode of Living Well with Pat Nogar, and I want to thank Ethan Kauffman, Director of Stoneleigh, for taking us through and pointing out all the things that make Stoneleigh so special. Join us again on Radnor Studio 21 for Living Well with Pat Nogar and other shows about our community.